This is a short video to describe how thinking works. I believe it is a novel approach and has the potential to answer many questions about free will and what thought is. How we see is a good introduction to how the brain works. The brain is not, I stress not, like a camera. A camera faithfully reproduces an image. The eye does not see like that. When an eye sees something, the image is not, I repeat not, sent like a camera image to the brain. The image impinges on nerve cells. The different parts of the image, such as shape, color, movement, depth, comparison with similar objects, etc., are processed to the brain. The brain then puts all this information together in some complex way to form the image that we see. Like sight, all the senses are constructs of the brain. Feeling, hearing, smelling are all like sight. All these are seen from a first-person viewpoint. They are happening to us. Let's take a closer look at this self-awareness. Many mammals are also believed to have self-awareness to some degree. Even insects are believed to have a perspective of themselves. A dog, for instance, perceives things from the perspective of itself. Now let's break self-awareness into its two basic components. Firstly, the inner me. The self-awareness that we perceive things from our point of view. Secondly, is the complexity of this self-awareness. The intelligence of this self-awareness. The two tend to be mingled in most thinking, so the province of self-awareness tends to be labeled a human quality, because humans are highly capable in both. Aspect 1, the self-awareness, is the most extraordinary of these aspects. The mental construct that there is a self, a driver, a consciousness. So let's take this aspect 1, the self-awareness, and separate it from aspect 2, the complexity. An example is pain. The pain happens to us. We feel pain from our perspective. So even though we do not know how it works, we now have something where there is from a self-perspective, but is not intellectually complex. Mammals such as dogs feel pain in a similar way to humans. They have a self-awareness of the pain. They have this subjective experience. So the most incomprehensible and extraordinary part, that is the self-awareness, is not just a human quality. Self-awareness, this ability to feel things from our own perspective, is in humans and in animals. But we know a computer does not have it. If you hit a human or a dog, they will feel the pain from their own perspective. They may say ouch, but they have the pain happen to them. If you hit a computer, it can be programmed to say ouch when it is hit, but there is no self or any perspective. The self-awareness in our brain happens about 0.3 to 5 seconds after a decision or feeling is made. This is called the readiness potential. This implies that the decisions are made in another portion of the brain and then transmitted to the self-awareness portion. Let's call this other part of the brain the intelligence portion. This intelligence portion or subconscious actually drives everything. The intelligence of the brain's self-awareness depends on the power of the intelligence portion feeding the self-awareness. It feeds the self-awareness portion. The higher the intelligence portion feeding the self-awareness portion, the more complex the self-awareness appears. For example, a dog and a human may have about the same self-awareness. But a human will have a more powerful intelligence portion feeding it. A simple analogy is a desktop computer and a computer monitor. The computer is the intelligence portion and the monitor is the self-awareness portion. The computer portion of the brain generates and coordinates all the creative, cognitive, emotions, decisions, memory, input, etc. And then feeds the appropriate ones to the monitor, which is the self-awareness, and all these appear as conscious thought in the self-awareness portion. Basically, the self-awareness portion takes the input from the intelligence portion and creates a perspective change, so that is it from my own viewpoint. The self-awareness is the same for humans and at the very least higher animals like dogs. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's take a dog's intelligence portion and feed it through a dog's self-awareness. The dog thinks of itself as a dog. Let's next take a human's intelligence portion and feed it through a dog's self-awareness. The dog will see itself as a human with human intelligence. The dog will be a myself of a human. Let's take this one step further. Let's feed a yet-to-be-developed sophisticated AI's intelligence through the self-awareness of a dog. The AI on its own does now have self-awareness. However, in this instance the AI will have self-awareness. The dog will then think of itself as an AI. In each case the input is intelligence driving the level of the self-awareness. The self-awareness is basically just a perspective change to a me. So the difference between humans and animals is not sentience. It is intelligence. We all have sentience, but with humans a more powerful intelligence is driving the sentience. The sentience is the self-awareness. The perspective change. I would like to make the case as to why the intelligence, as opposed to the self-awareness part of the brain, is actually in different algorithms. The reasoning is based on the ideas I covered previously. Firstly, there does not appear to be any difference between a higher mammal's and a human's self-awareness. The self-awareness or perspective change to a me is the same for both. Secondly, there is a delay in this self-awareness of about 0.3 to 5 seconds after the computer or intelligence part of the brain has made the decision. This implies the true decision maker or intelligence is fed to the self-awareness. Therefore they appear to be different features of the brain with the intelligence part feeding the self-awareness. Thirdly, the creation of the self or self-awareness or consciousness is an illusion or mental construct like sight. There is no intelligence or emotion associated with it. Fourthly, most areas that are related to thinking such as logic, forecasting, creativity, memory, reaction to stimuli, for example senses, can, with continually improving sophistication, be generated by an indifferent computer. Additionally, computers can appear to display emotional qualities such as love, and any other emotions. Of course, there is no self there to feel it, but they can certainly be programmed to outwardly display these qualities and will get much better at doing it. As computers develop further, the realism of this will continue to advance, but again they will be the output of an indifferent computer. Fifthly, the proposition is that all these human cognitive capabilities only need to be conducted once in the brain. That is, conducted by the intelligence portion of the brain. They do not need to be duplicated in the illusion part of the brain that is the self. That would be redundant. So we end up with these intelligence algorithms generating cognitive emotional capabilities are indifferent. They are like a computer or AI generating them all. But, when they are passed to the subjective experience part of the brain they change perspective from indifference to a self. The subjective experience does not in any way manipulate the input from the intelligence other than changing the perspective as though there is a me, a self, and thus create an illusion of an awareness which we know as sentience or consciousness. Let's now look at a summary of the conclusions and their implications. Intelligence and self-awareness are distinctly different aspects in higher animal brains. Decisions, planning, logic, emotions, creativity etc. are in the intelligence aspect and are generated before we are self-aware of them, the readiness potential. Intelligence is created by an indifferent computer or AI in the brain which then feeds to and directs the self-awareness. The subjective experience of self-awareness is a construct of the brain like sight. This self-awareness creates an illusion of an I directing things, a sentience. By simple analogy, intelligence is like a desktop computer and self-awareness is like the monitor. Intelligence is different between a human and higher mammals, not because of a difference in sentience or self-awareness, but because of a higher intelligence feeding essentially the same self-awareness in both humans and higher mammals. By a similar analogy to the previous, a more powerful computer versus a less powerful computer feeding the same monitor. Self-awareness is not a critical requirement for a powerful AI. Self-awareness is a mental construct and is an adjunct, which is not necessary for high-level intellectual ability.